Parents let son, 3, sleep in backyard for weeks. When neighbors discover why, they call 911. Karen Miller stood by the kitchen window again, coffee growing cold in her hand. The soft glow of the backyard lantern flickered through the mist, outlining the small tent where her 3-year-old son, Eli, slept every night. It had been 3 weeks, neighbors whispered. They stared over fences, murmuring questions Karen tried to ignore. She'd catch glimpses of curtains shifting, of phones pointed toward the yard. Her husband, Mark, kept telling her, "Let them talk. We know why we're doing this." But Karen couldn't shake the fear that someone might misunderstand. It wasn't exactly normal, after all, to let a toddler sleep alone outside every night. When the distant sound of sirens reached her street, she froze. This story didn't start with neglect. It started with love, and something Karen never thought she'd have the strength to face again. Just 2 months earlier, their lives had changed in one awful instant. Eli had been playing in his indoor play tunnel, a simple pop-up toy. When it collapsed, he panicked. Karen remembered his screams, muffled and desperate. By the time she reached him, he was trembling, eyes wide, barely breathing. After that day, bedtime became a nightmare. He couldn't sleep in his room. The walls made him cry. Even small spaces, closets, cars, the bathtub, sent him into hysterics. They tried everything: therapists, medication, gentle reassurance. Nothing worked. Until one child psychologist, Dr. Rivera, suggested something radical, a form of exposure therapy designed for children. "Let him sleep outside," Dr. Rivera had said softly, "in an open, controlled environment where he feels safe but not confined." Karen thought it sounded ridiculous, dangerous. But as Eli's fear worsened, she realized it might be their last hope. By week 2, the Millers' quiet street wasn't so quiet anymore. Mrs. Dalton from next door muttered, "That poor boy, out there all alone." Someone snapped photos. Another neighbor called the homeowners association. Karen tried to explain, "He's fine, we're monitoring him, we check every hour." But no one believed her. Even Mark's patience was wearing thin. "Maybe we should stop," he said one night. "This isn't worth the attention." But when they peeked into the tent, Eli was sleeping peacefully. The first time he'd done so in months. Karen touched his tiny hand and whispered, "He's healing, Mark. Look at him." Still, every time she looked back at the dark windows of the surrounding houses, she felt eyes watching, judgment hanging in the cool night air. Something was building, and she could sense it before it happened. It happened on a Thursday. Blue and red lights flashed across the Millers' lawn. Karen's stomach dropped as 2 officers stepped out of their cruiser. "Ma'am, we received a report about a child being left outside overnight," one officer said. Karen's throat tightened. She tried to explain, words tumbling over each other. Therapy, supervision, doctor's approval. But to the officers, it all sounded strange. Mark fetched the folder from inside, doctor's notes, the signed program details, a sleep monitoring log. The officers radioed in, speaking quietly. One of them, a younger man, glanced toward the tent. "He's smiling in his sleep," he murmured. Karen couldn't hold back tears. Then a car pulled up, Dr. Rivera's. She had come when Karen texted her in panic. "Everything they did," the psychologist told the officers, "was under my direction. This little boy is recovering from trauma. You're looking at progress." When the truth came out, everything changed. The police didn't file a report. They stayed to listen. Dr. Rivera explained how the tent therapy worked. The open air reduced Eli's anxiety, while nightly routines rebuilt his trust in enclosed spaces. Each week, they'd close the flap a little more, helping his mind reassociate safety with sleep. Neighbors gathered at the fence, faces softening as they heard the story. A week later, Mrs. Dalton showed up with a handmade quilt. "For his tent," she said quietly. Eli's laughter filled the yard again. He started spending more time indoors, even crawling into bed without crying. On the final night of the therapy, Karen watched as Eli zipped the tent, closed himself, and whispered, "Mommy, it's okay now." Tears welled in her eyes. What began as whispers of neglect ended as a neighborhood lesson in compassion and a little boy's triumph over fear. Because sometimes healing doesn't look the way people expect. Sometimes it looks like a tent in the dark, and parents brave enough to trust the process.